The focus of this lesson is on solving an absolute value equation, and we're going to use the procedure that we have outlined here. So the first step is to isolate the absolute value expression. So we do have addition of 10 and multiplication of 5 going on outside of the absolute value expression, so those need to be undone first so that that absolute value expression is isolated. So my first step is to subtract 10 from both sides of my equation to balance that equation out. We're left with 5 times the absolute value of 1 minus 4x equals a negative 9. And then I need to divide by 5 on both sides, so I'm left with the absolute value of 1 minus 4x equals negative 9 fifths, because when I divide by 5 on both sides, I'm left with negative 9 fifths on the right. And then now I have my absolute value equals a negative number. Well, that can never happen. So really, at this point, I can stop and I would know that there are no solutions. An absolute value can never equal a negative number. However, so my solution in that case would be the empty set. However, maybe you're not paying attention completely and you're just going through the motions of the procedure. So this is all I would need to do and I'd know I was done. But if I was continuing on because I didn't notice, then let's go ahead and continue this problem out. So we would normally, we would split this into two equations, exactly what we see without the absolute value symbols is one of the equations. Or the other equation would be take what's in that absolute value symbols, that expression, and then go opposite on the other side. So apply a negative to that negative 9 fifths. And so if we go ahead and solve, we'll subtract 1 from both sides. I'll do it in the form of 5 fifths since that's my denominator. And I'm left with negative 4x equals negative 14 fifths. And then we're to divide by negative 4. Divide by negative 4. That gives us x equals negative 14 fifths times the reciprocal of negative 4, which is negative 1/4. So that ends up being positive, and then we could cancel. 2 goes into 4 twice, 2 goes into 14 7 times, and so that'll give us 7 times 1 is 7, and 5 times 2 is 10, so 7 tenths. And then if we solve the other equation, we need to multiply that negative times a negative 9 fifths, and we would get a positive 9 fifths. Subtract 1 from both sides, do it in the form of 5 fifths on the right. We get negative 4x equals 4 fifths. But then again, I have to divide by a negative 4, divide by a negative 4. X equals 4 fifths times the reciprocal of negative 4, which is negative 1/4. Again, because we're multiplying, we're allowed to cancel, and we're left with x equals negative 1/5. So it appears that the solutions are 7 tenths or negative 1/5. But then we would have to check. So if we go through our check, we have 5 times the absolute value of 1 minus 4 times our x plus 10 equals 1. And then our check is to plug in 7 tenths. But that's just 5 times the absolute value of 1 minus 28 tenths, or 14 fifths if you reduce that, is in absolute values. And so that's just 5 times, we write 1 as 5 fifths minus 14 fifths plus 10 is 1. So that's 5 times the absolute value of negative 9 fifths plus 10 is 1, but then the absolute value of negative 9/5 is positive. So this is 5 times 9/5 plus 10, and the question is whether that is equal to 1, but then 5 times 9/5 is going to give us 9, and 9 plus 10 does not equal 1, and so our check shows us that 7/10 is not a solution. So then we would have to check that negative 1/5. So it's 5 times the absolute value of 1 minus 4 times our x. Close the absolute values, plus 10 is 1. And then this time around, we're checking for negative 1/5. So go ahead and simplify this expression. This is 1 plus 4/5 in absolute value symbols. But then that's just 5/5 plus 4/5 in absolute value symbols. But then that still adds up to 9/5 in absolute value symbols. And then the absolute value of 9/5 is 9/5. So 5 times 9/5 plus 10 equals 1. We get down to that same equation. So this is 9 plus 10, which we know does not equal 1. So negative 1/5 does not work. And so again, neither of our solutions check out. So we would say that the empty set is the solution overall.